Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the All Words Are Free podcast. So today is the second episode in a little genre mini-series, little vibe that we're doing, which, I've been really excited about. I really liked the first one. I think it went well. So hopefully it continues from there. I'm sure it will. So today, we are in conversation with Libby, who is featured on this podcast a few times. I'm the
field expert.
And we're going to be talking about kind of Greek myth derived or Greek myth kind of based or inspired novels and stories in media as well. So I'd say, do you want to introduce yourself? But I feel like we have before, but in the context of what we're talking about.
I've always very much liked reading books. I've also always been into Greek mythology. I was a Percy Jackson kid. Although not that much of a Percy Jackson kid. I remember I got to the fourth one and I just got kind of bored. It was a bit slow. So I think I actually didn't read that many of them. But that kind of kick-started my interest in Greek mythology. And then since then I've just always been kind of into it. I've read a lot of different, I've read different Greek mythology kids books from there. Whenever I have way less time for reading now, or at least that's the excuse I tell myself while I'm watching TV instead. I'm trying to get back into reading more. But when I do, a lot of the books I've really enjoyed in recent years have been Greek myth inspired, so I've kind of gone back towards that. Yeah.
What do you think draws you to the genre?
It's hard to say. I think I like the fantasy element, but it's not normal high fantasy. It's myth, and there's a lot of really interesting figures that aren't picked up upon as much. I don't really want to read a book all about Zeus, but give me a book about one of the smaller characters that's kind of sometimes not so focused. I read Ariadne and I loved it. Those are the ones that really get me, and I've got a few on my shelf waiting for me right now.
I bet, because I guess so. We've talked about this before. I'd never really considered reading the kind of Greek myth inspired stuff. So your Ariadnes, your Circes, whatever. And then I read Circe, because I borrowed it from you. And I really enjoyed it. And I think I'd had this kind of Percy Jackson-esque preconception that it would be very... I mentioned this in the last episode on fantasy, that it felt kind of very connected to a YA or kind of children's sorts of things. And as somebody who, I'm going to admit it, it felt very kind of that's not for me, or it felt like it wasn't something for an adult to read in a way.
Yeah.
Even though I know now and I know generally that it is, it was that it always just kind of put me off. And I think the popularity of stuff puts me off as well, which is really bad. But if something's a bestseller, I'm like, oh, do I really want to read? But I don't know. I am a bit of a pick-me reader, but I'm glad that you kind of opened my eyes to it, because I did really enjoy it, and I think your descriptions really did them justice as well.
I think the book that took me back to it, because I also saw it as quite childhood, fantastical. I think the thing with Percy Jackson as well is it's set in modern era, and then they come in as these almost out of this world characters. So I think it feels less grounded, which is ironic since it is literally grounded in modern reality. But I think reading the ones that are grounded in ancient Greece feel more like historical fiction than fantasy. Which is, I enjoy historical fiction, so I think that makes it feel more adult almost. So I think the one that kick-started me on Greek mythology retellings again, like a lot of people, because it's a very popular book, it was... Actually, no, I think I might have read Circe first. I was going to say it was Song of Achilles, but I think I might have read Circe first. And I absolutely loved it, because it's just it's I've always loved these stories. To start with, I enjoyed like, I think my first adult experience of these retellings was actually with Carol Ann Duffy's poetry collection, The World's Wife, which has a few poems that are Greek myth inspired, but from this like tragic female perspective, whereas they're usually seen as like a pawn in the men's game. And so I liked the idea of reading that. Although some criticisms I've kind of heard more recently from people who are more kind of familiar with the originals, because I have to admit I have not read the originals. I haven't read the Iliad, I haven't read the Odyssey. Their criticism is that, if anything, they feel like the need to say this is a feminist retelling takes away from the original, because according to the people I've spoken to about this, the women already have a lot of agency and story in those, but by seeing them as a side character that needs to have more to say, we're taking away from the original a little bit.
Yeah, you're kind of placing your kind of modern conceptions of, oh, well, women are always put down, so they must have been put down in this, and so you're kind of...
Well, they absolutely were put down. Like, they're taken as slaves in the Iliad. And, you know, they have great monologues about, you know, being slaves, but, you know, so to then take that and be like, oh, well, she's a slave, she needs to have more to her. It's like, well, she's a slave. Like, she's not been allowed to have more to her. And by assuming there must be more going on, it's like, yeah, of course there's more going on, but like, she's not going to be a great heroine underneath it all, and she doesn't have to be a feminist hero because she's been taken as a slave. Like, what agency do you want her to have? She's a slave. Which is like, yeah, it would be nice if they had agency, but a lot of the women in Greek myth simply don't. But I mean, I kind of enjoy reading the stories where they give them more agency anyway, but I think the assumption that just because they don't have the freedom to do those things means that they don't have the depth of character or thought. I think that's the assumption people take issue with, is like, well, she already has a huge monologue about how hard it is for her, but why do you need her to be secretly in the background, like digging an escape tunnel or something? Like, she's already experiencing this and she's already expressing her pain. Why is it not agency enough to experience that emotion and talk about that emotion? Why does she secretly need to be strong on the inside and you know, doing something else? So I think that's a valid criticism, but I don't think it's always necessarily that's how it is. And the thing I like especially about Circe is that it stitches together lots of little bits of stories, because Circe doesn't really appear much in the Odyssey. Like, the bit she is in, you get, you know, she has a hell of a lot of agency. She's not in there very much. I think she's in like 3 lines or something. Even though I think he was supposed to have visited her for like a year or some serious length of time, and then she's just but that's all summed up in just a few lines. So I like, the thing I really liked about Circe was the stitching together of all of these different stories that you could connect her with.
No, I really love that as well. Like, I felt like I used to feel when I read fan fiction, when they bring in like loads of different characters. I'm like, oh my god, like I know that one. But also, it's quite fascinating how the authors of the modern retellings kind of take those like 2 lines or whatever and flesh it out into this whole story, and like the depth of research that must have gone into that. Like,
I think the thing about Greek myth is just that it's so vast, and there's also a lot of contradictions, so you can kind of pick and choose which ones you want, because they're from different eras. So there'll be like one character that in 3 different things has 3 different sets of parents, and you can pick which one you want for your narrative and how that childhood would have been and whatever. Because it's mythology, it moves and changes with people. It's not a, you know, well thought out, perfectly designed universe. But that means there's a lot more to play with. And I think the other thing I find really interesting about it is that the gods aren't good. Like, a lot of like powerful beings like that in fiction are either heroes or villains, and the gods are neither. And I think that's what makes them very interesting narrative devices. They are petty and they are human and they are not good or bad. Like they're evil sometimes and fine or good the next. Like they have no real moral alignment to them, and I think that creates lots of different very interesting stories. And you also have a huge mishmash of these great stories with huge powerful figures, and then these little ones of just like a guy looking in a pond too long. Like you get vast differences and somehow they all end up connecting.
No, I do find it really like interesting. Yeah, even from like a creative perspective, right? It's like, you know, way back when all these things were kind of thought of and stitched together, and people kind of did their own little, because I suppose it was all very collaborative and people made their own little offshoots, and like you say, you know, you've got like people with loads of different kind of origin stories and intermingling things. I think it's really cool. It's like, I don't know, it does seem like a little kind of world-building exercise.
Not to make it into biochemistry, but it does feel a little bit like a signalling pathway where you have like multiple different receptor options that could lead to the same thing, but then that same thing can lead to lots of different things. Yeah. So you've got like a weird central hub to it. And if you think of each character as like one central hub, and they've got multiple different origin stories and multiple different like expeditions they can go on, and you can kind of pick your own path if you want, choose your own adventure.
I love that. It's like that. Is it like Black Mirror where they did like the choose your own kind of quest or whatever?
So I feel like each author can choose their own adventure. They pick a main character, they see the possible origin stories, they see the possible outcomes, and they get to pick the through line that they want to go with, and then flesh it out and pull in different things from different areas. And I just think it gives a wealth of options that they can stitch together.
It's really cool. Because I guess in that way, people probably hate me for bringing this up, but like, so the kind of Greek myth retellings and things kind of linked to that were they kind of boomed at one point, right? They kind of, it seemed like suddenly like Waterstones, it was like everywhere, you know? And I don't, like, what do you think? Like, do you think that it became popular? Yeah, so you can think about it in different ways. Say it became popular, and so people who hadn't really been recognised before for what they've been doing for years were suddenly kind of thrust to the fore, and that's amazing. Yeah. Or do you think people kind of bandwagoning?
Oh, for sure there were people bandwagoning, but I think a lot of people as well just were like, oh, this is what I've been doing and now I have an opportunity. Yeah. Like, I think from what I can tell, it was Circe and Song of Achilles that caused the boom. Mm-hmm. Like, Madeline Miller just kind of blew up very quickly. Those were both bestsellers, and that created a bit of a knock-on effect. And a lot of them are really good and fleshed out, and a lot of them, from what I've heard, aren't. And a lot, like the ones I read, are, you know, vary in quality. I mean, to be honest, I kind of get a guilty pleasure out of them, even if they're not like the best written. Like, I still enjoy them because I enjoy the narrative, and I don't have to be like
nitpicking.
You know, like I can read something and be like, oh, you know, this is no Circe, but like I'm still enjoying it, and I still enjoy the narrative and the storytelling. So, but I haven't read any that were outright bad. Like everything I've read, I would still categorize as good, but just not necessarily a masterpiece. So I think people do write it with passion. I haven't read one that felt like just completely like dead drivel that they were trying to make up.
Just
so I don't quite feel that way. It does make me wonder though if the boom came from Percy Jackson kids growing up.
You know what? Probably
because I read like that timeline makes sense.
It, yeah.
Like the timeline does make sense.
Yeah, because we were Percy Jackson kids. Right?
We were Percy Jackson kids. I feel like we were in the Percy Jackson era.
Yeah, we were.
And we became adults when the boom happened.
Yeah. So it's like that nostalgia thing, right? It's like people looking to go back to something that they used to love when they were little.
Yeah, so I feel like it might have been a Percy Jackson kid growing up kind of, yeah.
Brilliant, yeah.
Because there's been like a Percy Jackson revival recently as well, because the original movie adaptation was god awful. I don't know if you ever had to see it.
Oh, I did have to see it. Yes, I did. I've seen it multiple times.
Me
they always show it.
It's
Oh,
awful. It's made me so angry. But I think they like did a remake or like made it into a TV show or something.
A TV show.
A TV show, yeah, okay. And I know the original author of Percy Jackson was involved in it. I haven't seen it, but I've heard that it's at least a lot better than the film.
Okay.
So, and that seemed to happen around a similar time that the boom in Greek myth retelling books happened.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it is the kids grew up, wanted a better TV show adaptation and wanted their books.
Yeah.
It could very well be.
Yeah. So it's the same as like fashion trends, right? It's like things coming around in cycles.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's really fun. But are there any, so we've mentioned a few, well, a couple, but are there any kind of authors that you'd like to highlight or particular novels that you'd like to recommend people to read?
I mean, I did not come with notes. I'm not you, so
No.
I can only, off the top of my head, say Madeline Miller is the big one, but I've definitely read and enjoyed other ones. I just am not very good at plucking author names out of my head.
Yes.
It's just that Madeline Miller's been mentioned enough in popular media that I remember her name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've read Women of Troy and Silence of the Girls. I think it's Pat Barker or maybe Pat Baker that wrote those. I enjoyed those a lot, and I think I saw recently in a bookshop, I saw one that had like a similar art cover, and I was like, and I looked at it, and it was a third one, and I was like, yes! So I need to get on that.
Nice.
And then, I can't remember who the author of Ariadne was, but I really enjoyed that one as well. I haven't really had any misses. I definitely didn't like the Pat Barker ones as much, or Pat Baker, I genuinely don't know. I didn't like those ones as much as Madeline Miller's writing, but I think it's pretty damn hard to come close to that.
It's Pat Barker. Yeah, Pat Barker.
Yeah, so she's come out with a third one, so it was Silence of the Girls first, Women of Troy, and then just now, well, not just now, last year, but yeah, Voyage Home. And she does historical fiction with, I think it's World War One as well.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, so
she's versatile.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool. Oh gosh, she's written quite a lot. See, that's also something I like. I like when an author kind of, slightly going off topic here, but when an author does a load of different things and like doesn't restrict themselves to what's popular, but also kind of, you know, because everyone's multifaceted, has different kind of interests and whatever. So that's really cool that she does kind of straddle around a few different things. Gosh, she's been active for a long time. So, going back to the topic at hand, let me click the right one. Other genres. I guess that kind of links in nicely with the whole Pat Barker thing. Are there any other genres that you like?
Like other forms of media, but with Greek myth, or
like other types of novel. So like not Greek myth, but any kind of other.
Really, I thought this was the Greek myth episode. You've clickbaited.
I have clickbaited. No, this is just like a general kind of bullet point. Other genres that you're interested in.
I have always loved dystopia. I mean, it kicked off with the good old YA, like Hunger Games.
Nice.
Bit of Divergent, Maze Runner, the Holy Trinity.
Maze Runner, my God. Yeah.
And then as I got
So
older,
good.
Handmaid's Tale became a new favourite. 1984.
Nice.
I'm trying to think other. I'm reading The Circle right now, which is another dystopia.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Yeah. And I can't lie, I still love Hunger Games. Like, I came off Divergent because that was not actually good, and I never finished the Maze Runner series, but Hunger Games still has me in its clutches.
I know I've got to read the prequel. I've still got to read it.
I know, I've told you, it's
because
amazing.
you told me to read it. I'm going to have to, because
it's genuinely
honestly,
really good. I think that's quite a controversial opinion, because I know a lot of the fan base does not like it.
Okay.
They're wrong. It's really good.
Okay.
It's because I feel like it's written for more of an adult audience. I think she had in mind that the people who read the books and loved the books would have grown up.
Yeah.
So I don't think it feels as YA as the others, but maybe that's my perception being warped because I haven't read it in a while. But I really loved it. I'm trying to think what other dystopias I've read somewhat recently. I'm also getting into like historical fiction because it does feel quite similar to Greek myth, for me at least. Even though, you know, Greek myth has like a fantasy element, I find historical fiction fills a similar hole for me. So the one I just given to you as a recommendation, and the one that I finished recently, The Mercies, absolutely fantastic, made me sob. And I guess it has a supernatural element to it, but it's not actually supernatural. It's just like women being accused of witchcraft in the 1600s. So, yeah, but I find that I think I just like reading about women's struggles in different environments, which is kind of depressing.
No, it's I get it though.
Yeah,
you know?
I think I just feel like something greater than myself and a bit of kinship, even though I don't identify as a woman, ironically. But like I obviously still have a lot of those same experiences. And I think reading about queer people and women in different historical contexts where they've kind of just been oppressed in different ways, I don't know, but like, and then the small ways that they can act out, like I think there's something really beautiful in that. Like, it's not about the big marches. I mean, obviously those women are incredible, but I think the small acts of defiance in these historical fiction is what feels very real and raw, of like, not every woman's going to feel comfortable going out on the street and like sacrificing her life and marching for what she believes in. But small acts of defiance of like when in a home, when not around men, like the kinship between women of being able to support each other and take care of one another after whatever it is has happened, and the small acts of defiance, just being in the kindness to one another, I think is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I love a good book with that in.
No, that's, yeah. I agree in what's the word? In abundance. But yeah, no, you put that really nicely. That was nice.
But I also love some very silly Greek myth.
Yeah, you got to.
When at the start, when you said lots of forms of media, I was like, oh, Lily, you don't understand. I'm so ready.
No, honestly,
I thought we were just here for the books, but I've got the other forms of media.
Luke, that was my next question. Go for it.
Okay, so me and Freddie just finished watching Netflix series Chaos.
Oh, yes.
So angry that it's not got a season 2 coming. I hate Netflix.
Does it leave it on a cliffhanger as well?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate when they do that.
Like, it's the first season, it has a story that wraps up, but it's clearly setting up, like, it almost feels like a prologue. Like, the whole first season feels like a setup for, like, the new order. So, like, the first season is amazing, and it's got a great story in itself, but, like, it's basically setting up, like, the toppling of the order, the way it's supposed to have been. And right at the end it topples, and you'd think that would be the win, but like, you want to see what happens now, and there's a lot of things that aren't explained about how the new order's going to work and that kind of thing, and it feels like honestly it would be good to just have 2 seasons. I think more than that and it would be ruining itself, but I think just a second season to see how the new order is going to work and like see things, or even honestly just like another episode to see it like with a flash forward to see it all set up, like I just makes me mad. But it also just had some really great characters and some really great representation too.
Yeah.
They have I don't know how much you've heard about it. How much do you know?
Not much at all, to be honest. I've kind of heard of it, but not really.
Yeah. Well, first of all, they've got some great actors in it. Yeah. Love a bit of Jeff Goldblum. He plays
amazing.
Zeus.
Oh, yes, okay, nice.
And they've got like 3 main characters that are part of this prophecy to topple Zeus. That's the big thing, right? And they don't all know that they're part of this prophecy. So it's being told by Prometheus on his rock, being like, and this is how I'm going to get free, and this is how we're going to stop Zeus's evil reign, because he's kind of like lost his mind and is doing bad things. And there's a lot of extra like weird stuff. I'm not going to spoil all of it. But the 3 characters that it latches onto as like the people that are going to help topple this are Eurydice. Love a bit of Eurydice, especially with Hadestown. I'm sure we'll get onto that.
Yeah.
And Caeneus and Ariadne. So Ariadne and Eurydice are already big faves of mine. Caeneus, I did not know much about, but maybe my new favourite because he's a canonically trans character in Greek mythology that I somehow didn't know about. He essentially was a woman, was raped and wished to be in a man's body, to no longer have that. That's in the Greek myth. In the TV show, he's simply a trans man who just realises he's a man and wants to be a man and lives as a man. But the complication of it is that he was born in the Amazon tribe, where it's all women.
Okay.
So all of the men have to leave, I think, by the age of 14, and he stays and then transitions, and then they're, like, mad that he not... Because to start with, I thought they were going to be mad because he was trans, and then it turned out they, like, were mad he was trans, but also were mad that he was a man living in the women's space after the age of 14. So I was like, how can it be both? But whatever. Transphobes don't make much sense. But I just thought it was really amazing to have that character as one of the three main ones you choose, and also to have a trans male actor playing him. So I, like, read some interviews of him talking about the character and how important it was for him to get to do that. And he did a fantastic job. And it was just really great to see some trans representation done by a trans actor. But also, like, it didn't feel virtue signally, like, they never made that a huge thing, like, that wasn't a huge, like, it was a fairly big plot point, but it wasn't done as, like, a big twist. It was just part of the story, just like any other thing was. There was a lot of other queer stuff as well, like lots of different queer couples and things like that, so it just felt very good representation without feeling forced, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it absolutely does not follow Greek myth at all, is the one thing, because to start with I was like, oh, I would have liked it to be more accurate, but then as the story goes on you realise it's not possible for that to be accurate in the world they're creating. So I kind of like that they just take it, like, most liberally inspired and don't, like, try and make it make sense with the Greek myth too much. Like, they're picking out inspirations and they don't pretend that they're not cherry picking, you know, like, they deliberately, I think they even have a line at one point of, like, this may not be how you heard the myth goes, but this is what, and I was like, yeah, okay, so nice. They're not trying to be accurate, they're picking things out in a very fun way, whereas a lot of, like, Greek myth inspired books will, like, try and follow closely to the storyline, but they'll just have what's going on in their head be the thing that they can play with a bit more, but the actual events and main hits, beats of the plot are all the same. They just threw that out the window for chaos and said, we're just going to grab inspiration from wherever we want to and put it together, and it was a lot of fun. It was really good. Also quite emotional, so... And has really great music. Like, I can't sing this thing's praises enough. It's really good.
I'll have to give it a go. When did that come out?
Last year.
Oh, okay.
I think. Or, like, actually, yeah, I think it was over the summer, because, like, I saw it advertised for me as, like, new on Netflix over the summer, and of course Netflix have already cancelled it. Yeah.
That's a shame, though, because that does sound really good, and especially with, like, you know, as you were saying about the representation and everything, it's sad that that's kind of been taken away.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then Hadestown.
Yes.
Go on.
Well, I think you're a bigger fan of it than I am, aren't you? Because I only kind of discovered it fairly recently compared to most people that have been into it for a long time.
Yeah, I think I only discovered it recently, really.
I knew of it, so I'm a bit strict on myself with musicals. As a musical person, my rule for myself is that I don't listen to a musical soundtrack unless I've seen the musical.
Oh, no.
So that puts me in a very tough spot. It puts me in a tough spot, and it means that even though I was hearing the hype about Hadestown, I was like, it sounds great. I was like, well, can't listen to it, can't find out what it's about, because I don't want to get the plot ruined by the songs or otherwise, and I don't want the songs to be ruined because I want to experience them for the first time with the full force of the context and the plot. Mm-hmm. I want to always have my first experience with a song be in its full context so that it can have the most emotionality behind it. Sure. And I'm not strict about needing to have seen it in person. If I watch the movie musical or, like, a pro shoot, or even if I can, you know, find a sneaky little bootleg, those are all fine, but I need to watch it before I can listen to the music. So I went to see it on the West End back in June, I think. Yeah. And it was incredible. Although, this is so embarrassing, but I was really tired, so I was, like, falling asleep during it. And I felt so bad.
No, I've been there.
Because they're just dark and comfy, and they're playing nice music, and I was just like, oh, this is making me want to curl up and sleep. But it was great. I was trying to stay awake, which makes it sound like it was boring. It wasn't. I just was so sleepy, and it was so warm and dark in there. Yeah. but I loved it, and so I've listened to it a lot since then. Yeah, again, very liberal with their kind of inspiration of Greek myth, I think. But I don't think they necessarily try and be as accurate with it. Their whole thing is like, you know, this is just a story we're going to keep telling. That's like the whole motif overall. So, yeah, very liberal with the inspiration.
Nice. Do you want to give a quick little overview?
No, you do it.
No, this is your episode.
Oh, Lily, I'm gonna do bad.
No, you're not. Go on.
Okay, well, it's the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, with a few changes. So, we've got Hermes, like, kind of as acting as the narrator and helping Orpheus be introduced to Eurydice, and we know that for some reason it's either always too hot or always too cold, and none of the crops are very happy. And I guess Persephone hasn't been around for a while. Orpheus is writing a song, you know, as he do be doing,
Of course.
and tries to, you know, get with Eurydice, and they do. They're like a couple. Then Eurydice is like too cold and hungry, and Orpheus isn't paying attention to her, and she ends up making some sort of deal with Hades to go down to Hades town. Yeah, I guess, and Orpheus is trying to write a song that's going to make the summer come back and all that, and then realises she's gone, and so he goes all the way down to the underworld to try and get her back, and he talks to Hades, and Hades is like, no, but then he sings, and when he sings, suddenly Hades changes his mind and says, okay, you can take her back, but she has to walk behind you and you can't look back. Oh, that rhymed. Poet, and I didn't even mean to be one. Yeah, so, yeah, then we go with the classic story where, oh, he turned around right at the end, and then she goes back down to hell, and that's how the musical ends, you know? And then they have the whole motif of, like, we're just going to keep telling the story again and again. That's how stories learn and grow. To be honest, there are still a lot of plot holes I find issue with in it.
Yeah.
Like, I really like the music and I like how it's performed, but I do not understand a lot of the way that the universe is meant to work. The thing about it's either, like, freezing cold or blazing hot doesn't make sense to me. If the problem is that Persephone is not is spending too long in the underworld, it would just always be too cold. Where's the blazing hot coming from? I don't understand. I also, I mean, this is just true of the myth in the first place. Why would Orpheus turn around? Men being stupid, I suppose. So actually, that's not a plot hole. That makes sense.
But yeah, completely sensible.
But also, I'm just, like, confused what the scene about him, like, Eurydice, like, trading her life in is meant to be. Like, because in the original myth, she, like, just dies of kind of snake bite, I think. But, like, I guess maybe the idea in this is that she's, like, sort of hallucinating as she's, like, on her deathbed from hunger, but I don't really get it. I'm not sure I fully understood it, and I think maybe you're not supposed to, but, like, the idea that she would actually just choose to, like, the way it's presented is like she's choosing to go to the underworld because she is hungry and is told she'll have food down there. But, like, to me, that sounds like what you're implying is that she committed suicide, which I don't think is the reading they want you to take from that. So I'm not quite sure what they're trying to get at there. Yeah. And I also don't understand how his song is supposed to restore spring when it's Persephone that restores spring. Yeah. But, like, I guess maybe his song is meant to persuade Persephone, or Hades to let Persephone go to the surface more. But then I'm like, okay, so why is it ever blazing hot? Maybe that's my only plot hole. Maybe it all comes back to that.
The blazing hot.
She sings, it's either blazing hot or freezing cold, any way the wind blows, right? That's the exact line. And I'm not going to sing it. But, like, why would it be blazing hot? Because I've tried to think about it, and I've been like, okay, well, maybe it's because she comes up for such a short time that, like, the seasons can't get in proper order, so she, so it, like, goes too quickly from hot to cold. And then I'm like...
Yeah.
So then I'm like, well, no, that doesn't make sense because that's not how warming works. If she was there for too long, it would be blazing hot. But if anything, if she's there for just a little bit, you wouldn't have time for the spring to like go properly before she leaves again, so you'd get like a little bit of spring and then it would die off straight into autumn. It would just stay
freezing cold.
Yeah, it would stay freezing cold. It would maybe heat up a little bit and then go back down, but it wouldn't go straight from cold to hot back to cold. Like they're saying, this thing that they specifically say is that they still have winter and summer, but they don't have spring and autumn. If you have the thing that's causing summer, the natural periods of warming and cooling between that will make spring and fall.
Yeah.
There is no reason that there wouldn't be spring and autumn. If anything, with what they're describing, if she's coming too quick, you would go straight from spring to autumn and not have any summer, because it would just get to like a certain point in spring, warm up a little bit, not enough to go into full-blown summer, then go into autumn and everything would die off again, and then you'd just have a really long winter. It doesn't make sense. It really bothers me.
Yeah, no, I do get what you mean. Like when you really think about it, you're like, oh, it's a bit. It does kind of.
And don't get me started on building that wall.
But I think, like, you know, they're just
at least
like,
that's the metaphor.
We have great songs, and I think they make great karaoke tracks, and therefore.
I mean, I guess part of the thing of what they're saying is like, we're just going to tell this story and again. So maybe it's like they're acknowledging the fact that the story doesn't make sense.
Maybe.
And they're just, the whole thing is like, it's just like, oh, this is just like good old storytelling, isn't it? Doesn't need to make sense. The music's good though.
The music is good. And
like the characterization is fun, and like the costumes and sets are all gorgeous. I'm just like, damn, how can you not look at that gaping plot hole? I hate it.
To be fair, I can't stand a plot hole. I've been there, I've tried to fill them myself. But, okay, back to the books.
Oh, you didn't let me go on to video games.
Script. I mean, you can talk about video games if you like.
No, that's all right. If you don't, I mean, it depends.
Is there a favourite?
A Greek myth video game.
Go on, I'm intrigued.
So one of my favourite video games I've ever played. It's heavily inspired by Legend of Zelda of Breath of the Wild, where it's very open world, and you have to like restore certain areas and collect things. And you can like have animals you ride on, and there's different like mini monsters and like to defeat, but also bosses. And it's all set in like this fictional Greek island that was crafted by Daedalus, that inventor. And so there's puzzles everywhere, and as you solve each puzzle, you get a little bit of like one of the smaller Greek myths. And then what you're building up overall is there's like 4 quadrants to the island, each one with a different god associated with it, and all entirely themed around that. It's so gorgeous.
I kind of love that.
It's so gorgeous. So you've got the 4 quadrants are Aphrodite, and everything's spring kind of stuff,
like
and like very florally, and there's like pomegranates and like that kind of stuff. Then you get Athena's, which is filled with like libraries and like farming and agriculture, because she was in charge of that. Then you have Hephaestus, where everything's like kind of yellowy grass and like big furnaces, and at the center of it being like his like blacksmithery. And then you've got Ares, which is like war-torn with like ruins and stuff everywhere. And all of them, like, to restore the gods, you have to like do these trials, which you can then level up your powers with, and like collect these things through story quests to like restore them to their full power, so that they can then like help you with the main goal, and you like kind of pick up their powers as you go along. It's really cool. And then you can finally go to Zeus's area, which is like a snowy mountain.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's got a really good story to it as well, which I won't spoil, but like the gameplay is very Breath of the Wild inspired, where you've got like trial chambers where you can get points which then go towards leveling up your like health and your strength and stuff like that, and you can collect armor from these mini tasks and that kind of thing. And the puzzles are really fun to do, and you get like different stuff. And then some of the other really fun stuff is that in each area you'll have like different temples and things that are like associated with different myths. So you'll have like a temple to the god of like Eros or something in Aphrodite's area, and it's talking about, you know, how much she loves him. You've got like a whole Adonis thing in her area as well, with like a, I think is it a poppy field? I think his blood gets turned into poppies.
Oh, I think Mia?
So he's like, I think he either gets turned into or gets killed by like a wild boar. So one of the mini bosses you can fight is a wild boar, and it's in a huge poppy field. And while you're playing, you've got the audio of Prometheus telling Zeus the story of like this mini myth. So you've got so many of these little stories in little side quests.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's amazing.
Like the thought that's gone into that,
it's
and like how
so
they've crafted
good.
it.
And they actually have a DLC you can get, which is with Egyptian myth, which isn't as big. It has like only 2 god sections, but it's still pretty. Oh no, it's not Egyptian. My dad was talking about a different game that has Egyptian myth, because my dad recommended this to me, because we recommend Greek myth books to each other. We both really like them.
Oh.
And no, so it's not Egyptian myth. It's, I think, Chinese myth in the DLC, and that was pretty good too. Although I wasn't familiar with it, so I didn't get as much of a kick out of it. But yeah, I could not recommend this game enough. I just realised I haven't said what it's called. It's called Immortals Phoenix Rising. Phoenix spelled Fenyx because it's edgy.
I see.
But it's very fun. Like it's I think I need to replay it now, because I've read more Greek myth stuff since then, and I'm just like, oh, I love it. It's such a fun game.
It sounds really good. It sounds really fun. I mean, I've never been like a massive kind of
I just
games
love
person, but
I'm not,
but like how you'd learn while you're doing it as well.
Yeah,
you know, like
it's more like, I think it's the open world exploration RPG games that I love. I'm not really somebody who likes strategy games. Like there is strategy to this, you know, you have to build up strength to be able to fight the bosses. Like there's Medusa in the game, you can go fight her. Loads of stuff like that. Like there's a Minotaur. Any classic Greek beast is going to be in there, and they're each different strengths, so you need to kind of build that up. And you have mini quests where you'll get a certain armor set if you defeat all of these like beasts of a certain level, and it's great. But yeah, like I'm not the best when it comes to skill stuff, so I played on like easy mode because I was mainly there for the story and like the puzzle solving, and it was great. It was so much fun. And yeah, I mean, I think I've gotten a bit better with my gaming skills since then. I played this back in lockdown, which was so good. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was like the second lockdown, or maybe it was in my first year of uni over the summer or something. I don't know. Or it might have been I think it might have been the long summer before I came to uni, where I just finished my A-levels. I think that might be when I played it. So yeah, either way, I had like a big chunk of time where I would just get up, play this, go to bed. It was so much fun. And like, yeah, the story to it is just incredible, because when it comes to games, I really enjoy the exploration and the story in like some sort of open world. I'm not as much about the combat or like the strategy. And so I just found those parts so strong, just like in Breath of the Wild. But like you can technically put it on hard mode if you want the challenge of also hard combat, so you can kind of get best of both worlds. So I highly would recommend it. It's a game for Switch, so
okay.
I don't play on anything else.
Fair enough.
Apart from my phone.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really interesting. That was really cool. Yeah, no, I really like that. Again, like I say, like anything with a kind of, you know me, kind of educational slant, I love.
Yeah.
So the fact that you can kind of, like learn stuff and like how they've crafted each of like the islands around that. I love that sort of
it's
thing.
It's beautiful.
That's really
I should show you some pictures of it after this.
Yes, please do. Sounds good. Okay. You're on a desert island.
Okay.
You can only have 3 books. Oh. What are the books? And I didn't prepare you for this either, so you're on the spot.
I hate this. I hate these questions.
I know, that's why I'm bringing it
How
up.
to build a boat for dummies.
Okay, you go with that way.
This is not what you're asking for, but I'm too much of a pedant. I can't do this because I just don't reread books that much, so I just feel like it would be
I'm the same.
I've heard somebody answer this question before by saying the Bible, and they weren't religious, and I was like, what? And then they were like, well, first of all, it's very long, so you'd be entertained for a while. You'd learn a lot about how other people think, and then it's got a lot of pages for making fire.
I mean, Yeah.
Like good kindling, because they're those thin pages as well.
Oh yeah, they're good pages.
And that would be good.
I love the feel of that paper.
Yeah, that would be good kindling though.
It would be good kindling. Not that I'm thinking about burning any Bibles. But yeah. So
I think it's okay if you're on a desert island. I think God would forgive you for that.
Yeah.
So
how to build a boat
for dummies. How to build a boat for dummies.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to say the Bible. Can I just bring a Kindle?
No, that's not. Okay, what about like top 3 Greek myth books then instead? You're not on a desert island. You're just vibing.
I don't think I read as much Greek myth as you think I do.
No,
Circe, definitely. I really enjoyed Ariadne. And honestly, I haven't thought about Song of Achilles in a little while, but that was pretty solid too.
Because like the books we've got here, right? So like all the stuff you've recommended to me so far that I've read. I say all the stuff. There's like 2 that I've read so far, but you've recommended a lot more.
There's 2 more on the table
really
right
good.
now.
And there are 2 more on the table. So the Mercies, which you mentioned, and then the Island of Missing Trees.
Yep.
Which again sounds really good. You can sell a book really well.
It's Greek adjacent because it's. Why could I not remember the name? Cyprus. It's set in Cyprus.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's got some historical fiction in there as well. Mm-hmm. It's to do with the conflict between the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots, and how the British came and totally made that way better, as we tend to do. But it's from the perspective of many different people. One of them being a fig tree that is kind of standing in the middle of this
I love this
pub
concept.
or like not pub but like tavern that is where the Greeks and Turkish Cypriots were happy to like intermingle. So it was where there was more of like a peace between the 2 segregated areas, and so it saw like a lot of this stuff, but then also saw it when it got raided and kind of eventually broken down, and then somebody took a cutting of it to take it back to England when they had to flee. And so you see that person's daughter growing up and learning about the parents' history of this conflict they grew up in, but their parents are quite tetchy about talking about. So it's a mix of the daughter trying to figure out her family history and family trauma, while you also hear the fig tree's perspective of like what it was like back then. And yeah, it's beautiful. It's really good. Wonderful.
Yeah. No, I've got many things to read from your bookshelf. But no, I'm really excited to read this. So, one of my little things that I do at the end of each episode is a little book swap thing, but I feel like we have book swapped.
Oh yeah, sorry, ruined it.
So no, you haven't ruined it. We've covered it already. This is like great for me.
Okay.
But another little thing I like to throw in there is, I guess we've talked about theatre, and we've talked about like video games and stuff, TV. But the other thing is a favourite non-book thing to do in your spare time / hobbies.
Oh, so this is just general.
This is just a little flavour, yeah.
Oh, I mean, it would have to be my theatre, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, the cop-out answer is, honestly, I just really like hanging out with my friends.
That's not a cop-out answer. I think that's a nice
but like,
answer.
I'm always kind of, doing different things with them. I mean, a lot of what I end up doing with friends are just watching TV together or watching a movie together. Me and one of my college friends right now are meeting up once a week to watch all of the Saw movies in order because we think they're really funny.
Nice. Okay.
Because they're very like cheesy, and like if you go back and watch them, the editing's really funny. Like that ad they used to play before films on DVDs, like you wouldn't steal a car.
You wouldn't, yeah, that one, yeah.
Saw is edited like that.
No.
I know. It's not. They'll like show flashbacks and it's in like fast forward and then suddenly slows down and it's got like a flash in the face and like it's so weird. And it makes it really funny. So we're watching it like not as a horror but as a comedy essentially. And we're planning to watch them all in order. So we went through Saw 2 last night. So that's the fun thing I do with my friends, I guess.
I love that.
But then also just doing my theatre stuff. I really enjoy lighting design, so yeah, has to be a combination of those.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, as a little aside, I'm writing a piece, like, it's kind of more of a review of the horror genre overall, but I went to see Nosferatu.
Oh, I need to see that.
And genuinely, that was hilarious. It was so funny.
Is it meant to be scary? Oh.
But I found it so funny.
I thought
was
it was meant to be
cackling.
good.
I mean,
Has it got bad reviews? I assumed it was going to be good.
I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Oh.
But it was so, I can't tell you how funny it was when you just see, if you do see it, you'll know what I mean.
Because I don't like scary horror.
It's not scary.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be, that's why I was going to go see it. I don't like things that are going to make me jump or like actually bother me and disturb me. I like either horror that's so bad it's funny, something like more mystery-ish, but like not realistic. Like, you know, like even if Saw was scary, it's like about a weird serial killer who plays games. It's not going to really get to me because it's never going to happen. Or like some weird like psychological horror, like Get Out, that kind of thing.
Oh, I like that sort of thing.
Cause I just don't feel like those things keep me up at night, and I don't feel like as on edge. It's more like, I guess what I'm saying is I'm more like a thriller thing, or like a death game kind of thing, like Squid Game-esque.
Vibes, yeah. No, I'm definitely on the same ilk, like more thriller than...
Or just like pure horror comedy, like when you make it to be funny. Yeah. Although I think a lot of them actually miss the mark more than ones that are trying to be scary and end up funny.
oh my god, I can't
like,
tell you.
I genuinely think bad horror movies that were meant to be scary but turn out funny end up being funnier than ones that are trying to be horror comedy.
Yeah, because I think if you're trying to be horror comedy, it's almost like you're trying too hard. Like...
Yeah, like then it's silly, but not in like a, oh, this is silly way. It's silly in a, look, we're so quirky way.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, that leads on perfectly to the next episode in this mini-series, because I'm going to be talking to Rebecca about horror. So...
Horror books or just generally?
Horror books, but then...
I don't read horror.
With the media
I'm very
question.
Interested.
I don't, yeah. I think it's like a really kind of interesting...
I've recently gotten into watching it. Maybe I need to try reading it.
Yeah. So I'd always, thought of it as like a film. Anyway, I mean, this is next episode, but like... Yeah, it's interesting. It's another genre that I haven't really massively explored, which has been nice in this mini-series so far. Like fantasy, Greek myth. I mean, I have obviously read it, but it's, kind of exploring things with connoisseurs of the genre.
I just feel bad that I was brought on as the connoisseur.
No.
I mean, maybe I feel a bit more like a connoisseur now that I was able to bring in musical theatre, TV, and a video game.
Well, that's precisely
because I was like, oh no, I have not read that many Greek myth books. What am I going to do? And then when you said in general media, I was like, oh, I'm about to tick so many different types of media off.
Precisely. That's why which has been nice. It's nice to explore things.
But
like
you didn't know that I'd just watched Chaos, the TV show, and had happened to play an RPG.
No, I didn't, but I know you so well that I just, underneath
you only
it
knew
all...
that I'd read like maybe 5 of these retelling books.
Yeah.
That's not enough to make me qualified.
You introduced me to it, so I suppose
one book.
That's why well, I might be reading another one. Who knows?
Well, I have a few more on my shelf. I got some for Christmas that my dad read that he thinks I'm really going to like, because I introduced him to Madeline Miller and some of the other ones, and now he's ahead of me and he's read some new ones, and I'm like, and got them me for Christmas. I'm like, okay, all right, Dad,
it's time.
You got me.
Time for the next one. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to add for the wonderful listeners at home?
Thank you for tuning in. It means a lot to Lily here that you're listening, and it makes me happy to see her happy. So I'm really glad that people want to listen to me babble, but mainly you babble.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. All right, we'll sign off then.
Yes.
So, thank you for listening. As Libby has said, I appreciate it greatly. I hope that you will join me next time with my next guest. Very exciting. Take care, and let's keep talking.